Yeah, this horse is going to lose, so it can't be in the race. Bull crap.
What do you
On January 6th, the website Zero Hedge hosted a debate over the topic of the events that took place on January 6, 2021 in Washington, D.C. I say events because that's the most neutral way to put it. Exactly what happened that day? Was it a riot? Was it an insurrection? Was it a coup? Was it a psyop? Was the main focus of that debate. There wasn't some formal motion that the participants were weighing in on, but was January 6th an insurrection was the first question asked, and very much the through line of the discussion. As to be expected with an internet debate, things went all over the place.
So
2 minutes, baby.
The participants in the debate were Destiny, who I'm assuming most of you know of. Just in case you don't, he's a left-of-center YouTuber who is no stranger to debates. On his side were Ed and Brian Krasenstein, who I don't know much about. As I understand, they're basically Twitter personalities who, as I've heard from the online left, so take this with a grain of salt, are very much establishment Democrats. On the other side was Alex Jones, who I don't think needs much of an introduction, Glenn Greenwald, a journalist who is certainly very smart, but has some very dumb takes when it comes to foreign policy and a few other things, and Darren J. Beatty. Beatty is another guy who I didn't know much about before this debate, but apparently he runs a website called Revolver.news, which covered the aftermath of January 6 extensively. He was also a White House official during the Trump presidency. The debate was moderated by Ian Crossland, a co-host of Timcast IRL. All things considered, he did a pretty good job, and was probably my favorite part of the debate. Everyone was in person, except for Glenn Greenwald, unfortunately, and unsurprisingly, things got heated a few times, especially between Alex Jones and Destiny, who were sitting right next to each other.
He wants to do little one-ups and just
So what Trump fans are, it's a
hope the
sports game
audience
for
only
them.
goes off how much emotion there is. I can top you.
Alex,
I can
calm
top
down,
you.
buddy. Calm down. Calm down.
Because Ian was unable to mute anyone, he had to shout over people a few times. And I couldn't tell if he was genuinely peeved, or if he was just getting into the spirit of things.
You can't vote for Trump now. A guy had a gun.
I've been asked by Zero Hedge to moderate this debate, so that's what I'm going to do. Everyone quiet down. We're going to Darren Beatty. Darren.
Overall, like most debates, I don't think it was terribly productive. I'm not opposed to debates like this happening. I just think that sometimes people have really idealized notions of what discussions like this are capable of doing for the broader public. We're a country that has the First Amendment that guarantees the right to free speech, and we have a culture that has been historically tolerant of a diverse range of views. These are good things. We've had times in the history of this country where people were a lot less tolerant of iconoclastic views, and I'm afraid we're in one of those times now. But generally speaking, I think we've been better about this than most of the Western world, much less the rest of the world, period. With that said, some people really idealize the role of persuasion in society. Let all the ideas compete in a free marketplace, and the best ideas will eventually triumph as the public gets to vet them properly. Dave Rubin of 2015 is a great example of this idealization. A cursory look around the internet will show you that this isn't really how things work in the short term, at least. We have rising numbers of people who think the earth is flat, after all. No, persuasion is our best tool, not because it always works, but because it's our only alternative to violence. And we should remain committed to it for that reason, but we should be realistic about what it's actually capable of. Whenever I push back against idealized notions of free speech, or talk about the limitations of debate, a certain type of person inevitably accuses me of calling for censorship. That is absolutely not the case, and nowhere is that implied in what I'm saying, nor is it the logical conclusion of my case. But misunderstanding things is what this type of person is good at. So if you're in that camp, feel free to leave comments below calling me a dictator enabler. I would never want to limit or censor debates like this. If nothing else, they're fun to watch, and this one certainly was. By the way, the link to the debate is posted in the description box below, just in case you want to watch it for yourself. Apologies for this tangent, but there's a funny story related to this. This has been my position on debates for a very long time, and I have proof. When I did my live stream with Adam Friended last week, he talked about how we both met on a Young Turks channel called TYT Nation, where they allowed audience members to post their own videos.
We became friends because we were both TYT fans. We were both watching TYT. Yeah.
Yeah, we posted. So they did this thing back in the day. It was back like right after I graduated from college. It was 2011.
Right.
They had TYT Nation, which is now just a channel run by Jeff Waldorf, I believe. But he was the moderator, and they would allow fan videos. And I posted fan videos, and Adam posted fan videos, and that's how we came to know each other. So,
yeah.
Most of you probably didn't know that. There was another guy who you've probably heard of who posted videos there as well. One Mr. Sean Fitzgerald. He didn't call himself actual justice warrior at the time. That came later. He made a video arguing that climate scientists should have a debate with climate skeptics to settle the matter, and I responded with my shtick about how debates are largely unproductive. This is a response to a video made by I Am Sean 90, where he argues that the public acceptance of global warming lags behind the scientific consensus because climate scientists will not publicly take on their skeptics. The idea being that since the evidence is so heavily in their favor, winning a public debate should be a breeze and hence the public would respond in turn. Anyways, back to the January 6th debate. Overall, I think that Jones, Beatty, Greenwald's side did a better job. Again, doing a better job doesn't necessarily mean that you're right. It just means that you won the argument. Greenwald is a journalist now, but he's a trained lawyer, meaning he knows how to debate. Beatty, who again I didn't know a whole lot about before this, did seem very knowledgeable. He could have been talking out of his ass the whole time, but given that I'm not terribly knowledgeable about the subject matter myself, it would be hard for me to know. And of course, Alex Jones is a total bulldozer who can gish gallop better than anyone I've ever seen. Destiny is a pretty good debater in his own rights, and I do think that he made some good points, but he didn't exactly have good reinforcements. The Krasenstein brothers were just sort of there. Occasionally, they would make some decent points, but they had the bad habit of bringing up things that weren't relevant to the topic. Like when one of them brought up Alex Jones's history with the Sandy Hook shooting. One point that the January 6th defenders kept bringing up was this idea of entrapment.
So Darren, there's 1,250 people who were indicted thus far. How many of them brought up as evidence in court that they were enticed or led into the building or led to do crimes by federal agents?
Well, there are actually quite a few.
How many of those?
Well, I wouldn't count them, but it's not.
But was any of that evidence actually admitted in court?
In some cases, yes.
And
as you can imagine, the judicial process is very aggressive in pushing against any types of entrapment defenses, and many defense lawyers, in some cases, reasonably so, want to dissuade their clients from entrapment type defenses because their goal is not to uncover the truth about entrapment. Their goal is to do the best for their clients in those specific cases.
For the uninitiated, entrapment is when a law enforcement official in some way induces or convinces a person to commit a crime they otherwise wouldn't have. Presumably in order to get a conviction or an arrest the officer otherwise wouldn't have. Leaving aside the specifics of January 6th, we do know that law enforcement at every level has done this. The question is, why? Well, that depends on who you ask. Glenn Greenwald seems to think that law enforcement officials have historically acted politically, meaning they have their own agendas and preferences for how things should be, and they act on them accordingly.
Yeah, the whole thing, like listening to them, honestly, it's like listening, I don't mean to be insulting, I'm just saying this, it's what it sounds like seventh graders who learn civics class and have this understanding of how the US government works, like, oh, the FBI investigate and they discover crimes and then they go to the courts and the courts are very honest and the courts are apolitical and the courts make rulings and everything that has happened in January 6th, and you can even look at the people they picked and chose who to expand the law, the people who ended up getting prosecuted on felony counts, even though they were nonviolent, had these incredibly novel interpretations of law that were used against them to turn nonviolent demonstration and nonviolent political protest into felony by taking this post-Enron law and giving it a stretched meaning that it never had before. And the reason so many of them plead guilty is because they know that if they go into court, they're going to have rulings against them because a lot of these judges, especially in Washington, are not only Democratic Party judges, but the entire system is furious to watch people go and put their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. So the entire system decided that this has to be punished regardless of what the law provides.
I think that's true in a way, but to me, it misses the mark in one important aspect. Alex Jones, and I know this because I used to listen to his show on a semi-regular basis when it was more widely available, believes that the deep state, as many people call it, is just another arm of a satanic pedophile globalist cabal that is trying to destroy our civilization from within. He did not mention this in the debate, but I've in no way exaggerated his views. If you don't believe me, just ask one of his fans their thoughts on the issue. I think the truth is a lot less romantic than this, but that it is still a cause for concern. Bureaucrats, like all other people, operate primarily out of self-interest. Therefore, most of their actions, I believe, can be traced back to self-preservation. These people don't want to lose their jobs or status, and they're willing to use the power bestowed upon them to preserve these things. None of this is at odds with what Greenwald said. If you think that a right-wing patriot group or left-wing revolutionaries are a threat to your station, and you're in law enforcement, you're going to use the power you have to prevent them from getting in a position where they can work against you in a meaningful way. The thing is, this isn't just some unique trait of law enforcement. It's all government bureaucracy, from the EPA to OSHA to, yes, the Department of Justice. I've discussed previously on this channel how the IRS has been weaponized against political actors on precisely these grounds. I don't care for the term deep state, because to me, it makes it all seem a lot more romantic than it actually is. I prefer the term the administrative state. So what sets bureaucrats apart from other people in positions of power, like, say, elected officials or high-level corporate employees? These people presumably also care about their jobs and their status, and are presumably willing to use their power to protect that as well. It's not that these other people don't cause problems, too. Of course they can, and they do. It's that bureaucrats are far less accountable to the public. As Charles Murray writes in By the People, Rebuilding Liberty Without Permission, if you are prosecuted for violating a regulation issued by the EPA, OSHA, HHS, Department of Energy, or any of the myriad other federal regulatory agencies, you appear before an administrative law judge, ALJ, sitting in an administrative courtroom. An ALJ is selected by the agency whose cases he will hear, and is subsequently an employee of that agency. The agency gets to choose its preferred candidate from among the 3 top-rated candidates identified by the Office of Personnel Management. An administrative law judge is exempt from performance reviews and other oversight by the regulatory agency, but may be overruled by the head of the agency. There's no jury. When appearing in an administrative court, you do not get a lawyer unless you pay for it. Most rules of evidence used in normal courts do not apply. The legal burden of proof placed on the lawyer making the case for the regulatory agency is a preponderance of evidence, not evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that you are guilty. If the administrative judge thinks that it's a 51-49% call in favor of the regulatory agency that accused you, you are found guilty. If the administrative court judge's decision is adverse, you may appeal the decision to another body within the agency. Our criminal justice system is far from perfect, but defendants there have a lot more recourse and protections than do those accused of violating administrative policy. People within bureaucracy, who are not elected or accountable to the public in any meaningful way, nonetheless have power over the public, and are expected to hold themselves accountable for any abuses of their power. Again, it's not that bureaucrats are uniquely evil. It's that they're normal people facing a set of incentives that really encourage malfeasance. How this functions, why it's a significant problem, and why I don't think Trumpian populism lends itself well to solutions, is something I'll be talking about in the future. For now, take care, and I'll see you soon.